2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk, coming to you from NASA Community College on 90.3 WHPC, also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. So, hi there, you know the routine. My name is, you got it, Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I cover all bases because it all depends on when you join us, but whatever you do, we appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. But I must tell you, I must start off with a mea culpa, how do you call it? I'm going to make a, how do you call it? When you, I'm going to make a confession. But don't take any offense. I did not watch the live broadcast of Prince Philip's funeral. Why? Simply, although I have a deep respect for the deceased royal, his funeral took place on Shabbos, our day of rest. And on Shabbos, of course, I don't use any electronic devices, so I did not join in the live streaming of the prince's funeral for me. But let's think for a moment. Why do we care so much about royals from across the pond? Every time I consume a piece of content about the royals, I wonder, why am I doing this? Here in the United States, for more than 240 years, the British monarchy has no power over us. Yet we continue to show great interest in everything royal. Royal news, weddings, interviews. Oh, gewaltige interviews recently over here with Harry, with Herschel, are among the top headlines in the United States news. This is not unique to the USA. The BBC estimated that 1.9 billion people watched the royal wedding in 2018. Now, these are staggering figures. So which begs the question, why? What is it about the royals that sparks our curiosity and interest? The comings and the goings and the interviews. So here's my theory. We all grew up listening to fairy tales of kings and queens and princes and princesses. And of course, we are all still dreaming of becoming royal. So unlike most other celebrities who earned their way to the top, being a royal sounds like all fun, no work. You don't have to do too much. You live in a palace surrounded by aides who are ready to fulfill any wish you have. Now, with regard to the Duke of Edinburgh, nothing can be further from the truth. Yes, he lived in a palace, but his life was full of duty and service. Since 1952, he completed 22,219 public engagements. It was an endless task of hosting, traveling, visiting, sharing words of encouragement, holding hands, at the same time being aware that everyone is watching closely everything he says or does. Even for a moment, he could not forget who he is and what he is. Now, coming to think of that, this sounds a lot like us. On the one hand, we are called the children of the King of Kings, of the Almighty God, and all of us carry a part of him inside of us, our holy soul. Yet, this awesome recognition comes with an awesome responsibility. We have the responsibility to constantly engage with the world around us in order to make it a better place. We have the responsibility to be there for others in their time of need. And of course, we have all the many mitzvahs to remind us of what life is all about. So as we read about Prince Philip's life, let's look inward. Let's recognize our own royalty. Every human being is royal. And we learn to strive to act upon it by living a full life of service to the Almighty God who created all the monarchs. Now, I'm going to change a little bit our discussion because I'm going to respond to some questions that I've received in recent times. I think today is a good time. Somebody wrote, why are religious Jews in particular scared of dogs? This particular person says every time they walk past an observant family, all the kids hide behind their mother's skirt like in terror. What's going on over here? So the answer really is, I know exactly how your dog feels. I often get a similar reaction from Jewish people. While many observant Jews are scared of dogs, many less observant persons are terrified of rabbis. There's something in the common between the dogs and the rabbis that make us both objects of trepidation. And it's not the facial hair. People fear the unfamiliar. That was a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, dear friends. Don't get nervous. You see, most religious homes do not have pets. Perhaps because families with many children are less likely to seek a non-human companionship. Perhaps because it can be tricky to care for animals on Shabbos, on the Shabbat. Or perhaps it's just a cultural thing. But other than the odd goldfish, pets are rare in observant communities. So those who are unaccustomed to canine company are often scared of dogs. People are scared of rabbis for the same reason. Both dogs and rabbis are loved by those who know them and instill fear into those who don't. But that's where the similarity ends. The underlying causes of these two fears are very different and almost opposite. The fear of a dog comes from the fear of being bitten. Fear of a rabbi comes from the fear of being inspired. What many of us fear most is that if we learn a little bit more about Judaism, we may like it. And if we like it, we might want more. And if they want more, then perhaps our life would be more in tune. This means change. And change, even for a better, is sometimes very scary. So the cure is to play with a few dogs and see that there is no basis for your fear. But the cure for rabbi phobia is to look into Judaism, to actually let your greatest fear come true. And guess what? You will like it, and you will want more. Now, our next little subject here today is how to be humble without being a wimp. So the question is, should I be humble or should I be assertive? Now, these are both supposedly good things to be. But does being humble and being assertive preclude the other? Is it kind of a contradiction? So I will share with you that there are many reasons for being humble. Now, here are some of the most common. You think you're kind of ugly and stupid. You perceive that people like you better when you're humble. A third reason being, it's just your nature to be humble and keep your mouth shut. A fourth reason is you keep on falling on your face, so what's there to be proud of? A fifth reason, you didn't sleep well last night, so you're kind of depressed. Now, there are also many reasons for being assertive. You think you're really handsome and smart. You perceive that people listen to you and do what you want when you assert yourself. It's just the way you are. A fourth reason, nobody but you knows how to do things right. Number 5, you didn't sleep well last night, so you're in a barking mood. Looks like humility and guts are not compatible bedfellows. So that's not going to work. So is there an alternative? There has to be. Let me tell you why. Because Moses, the Torah tells us, was the most humble of all men upon the face of the earth. Yet he had the spunk to stand up to Pharaoh and argue with God himself. King David sang, I am a worm and not a man. He meant it from the bottom of his heart, but you should have seen him swing that sword on the battlefield. We have another great leader, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, who was known for his humility. He would never say a word of Torah that he did not hear from his teacher. Yet, he was in constant in conversations, strong conversations with his colleagues, and stood his ground to the end. The same was with Rabbi Akiva, who was so humble he sat in a class of small children at the age of 40, yet stood in fearless rebellion against the awesome Roman Empire of the time. So how did these guys manage to swing two opposite attitudes at once. Turns out there is an alternative form of humility. A humility that has nothing to do with self-deprecation, sheepish nature, or even insomnia. It also turns out that the same humility comes with a sense of power, but not the sense of power that comes out of ego, pushiness, and indigestion. Quite the opposite. It's the sense of, yes, I know who I am, what I can do and what I can't, but I stand in the presence of something much larger than myself, my little self. So much larger that there isn't any room left for any vestige of my own ego. Something before which 1,000 universes are less than the dust from which all things extend. Something which is infinite, transcendent, and yet pervades all things. So when a person senses the presence of the infinite, it's a kind of humbling. Just like saying, standing before some incredible genius, superhuman type that you really admire. Only that this is infinite. That's big. That's awesome. That's very big. If a person senses the infinite, it's also very empowering. Because you can't sense the infinite without becoming absorbed within it and filled with infinite power yourself. There, in that space, humility and guts don't struggle with one another. There, all your faculties are united as one to fly high above any challenge, smash through the most impervious obstacles, take on the entire world without flinching. And yet, all of you is but a transparent window for the infinite light to shine into the world. So let us say, like Moses, like King David, like Rabbi Eliezer, like Rabbi Akiva, let's be these kinds of transparent heroes where we can have both humility and guts, and they should not be a contradiction to each other. Just recognizing the strength that we all have. Now, talk about strengths. I want to talk about gossip and slander. Lethal words. The Talmud tells us, evil gossip kills 3 people. The one who says it, the one who's listening, and the subject of the gossip. So you know something, let's say, you know something that Mr. A has done. Non-incriminating, not even objectionable. Unless you have a compelling reason, you are forbidden to share this information. Repeating innocuous gossip is called rechilus and often causes unforeseen negative consequences. Speaking about another's indiscretion or shortcoming is even worse. This is called lashon hara, the evil tongue. Unfounded libelous gossip, it's called motzi shem ra, is even worse. Someone's trying to sell you some juicy information. Politely excuse yourself and change the subject. See, words carry the potential of causing catastrophic harm, often tearing asunder families and friendships. Thankfully, lashon hara, evil talk, awareness has increased in the past decades, largely influenced by the passionate writings of the Chafetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan, on that topic. And what does he say? It's also forbidden to listen to evil talk. I guess I'm going to cancel all my, online news stations and everything else. Someone trying to sell you some juicy information, just excuse yourself and tell them Zayges and hasta la vista. Better yet, explain why you're not interested in listening. A second, in this area, sometimes even a compliment can have a negative connotation. Example, my neighbor is a great chef. The aroma of the barbecued steak wafts into my yard every night. Now, is that also a veiled critique of a spendthrift lifestyle? You have to be careful. How you say it and what you're saying and what you're trying to say. Another idea. Oh, don't ask. I'd rather not talk about Mark. That's called real lashon hara. You didn't say anything, but guess what? What you imply, that's also forbidden. So take this idea. We are obligated to notify a person of another's conspiracy against him. We're also required to share information with any person in a position to help the offending person. For example, you certainly should inform parents if their child is hanging out with the wrong crowd. That's the power of the tongue. Exerting self-control over our speech is admirable. It's fantastic. Even greater is the ability to truly respect and love every person, automatically eradicating the negative and losing the desire to share bad information about them. The destructive power of negative speech is surpassed only by a beneficial power of positive speech. Can you imagine if all the radio stations and TV stations only reported good news? They would be out of business in 15 seconds flat. You see, that's the power of negative speech. But it can only be surpassed with the benefit of positive speech. Praising and speaking positively about our fellow benefits ourselves, the person being praised, and all of society. So think about this. Which crime is worse? Financial exploitation or verbal abuse? Talmud says money can be reimbursed, but the hurt from words is irreparable. Money is a person's property, but words hurt the person themselves. Whether it's due to circumstance or nature, some people are more emotionally vulnerable than others. The Torah repeatedly tells us to watch our words, particularly with a widow, with an orphan, with an immigrant. Men are enjoined to speak sensitively and carefully to their wives. Do you know what? We're warned. The gates of prayer are sometimes closed, we are warned, but never the gates of tears. So whether due to circumstance or nature, some people are more emotionally vulnerable than others. So here's some prototype of verbal exploitation. Name calling. Hey, train tracks. Oh, come on. Can you pick up a Radio China with your mouth gear? Come on. Please. What about chiding? Cheer up, buddy. It's all for the good. It must be that you did something wrong that you're suffering now. That's disgusting to chide someone that way. What about past digging? Look, Mary, a picture of you before the acne treatment. Come on. This is a radio program. This is a family program. What about wasting my time? Joe asks Bill for help in his business, and Bill sends him on a wild goose chase, like providing useless internet links, defunct phone numbers, and connection that won't get him anywhere. Bill says he meant well, but he knows the truth. That's also disgusting. Then let me give you a more subtle example. Wayne walks into a store with great customer service and juices the salesperson for all the information he needs while trying all the samples. Then, once he's determined the best deal, he buys it at half price online. That is another example of disgusting behavior, and worse. What about public embarrassment? It's your fault, Johnny, if you just didn't prepare. You're going to stand up there and make the presentation anyway. In any ways. Again, putting a person in a position where they're going to be embarrassed, a no-no. Better for a man to cast himself into a fiery furnace, says the Talmud, than to shame his fellow in public. Publicly embarrassing someone, we are told, is not just breaking his bones, it's cold-blooded murder. If you have an issue with someone, deal with it privately. Be open and try to work out a resolution. Whenever possible, just forgive and forget. And let me tell you, just get on with life. Friends, many people I know, dear friends, they get themselves into hock, and families break up. And then as they get older, they realize, Mamma mia, I've lost this relationship. And they don't realize what wrong words bring to. I want to tell you a little story. It's a nice story. It's a famous story. In a small town somewhere in Eastern Europe lived a nice man with a nasty problem. He talked too much about other people. He could not help himself. Whenever he heard a story about somebody he knew, and sometimes about somebody he did not know, he just had to tell it to his friends. Since he was in business, he heard quite a lot about rumors and stories. He loved the attention he got and was delighted when they laughed because of the way he told his anecdotes, which he sometimes embellished with little details he invented to make them funnier and juicier. Other than that, he was really a pleasant, good-hearted man. He kind of knew it was wrong, but it was too tempting. In any case, most of what he told had really happened, didn't it? Many of his stories were just innocent and entertaining, weren't they? One day, he found out something really weird, but true, about another businessman in town. Of course, he felt compared and compelled to share what he knew with his colleagues, who told it to their friends, who told it to the people they knew, who told it to their wives, who spoke to their friends and their neighbors. He went around town until the unhappy businessman, who was the main character in the story, heard it. He ran to the rabbi of the town and wailed and complained that he was ruined. Nobody would like to deal with him after this. His good name and his reputation were gone flying in the wind. Now this rabbi knew his customers, so to speak, and he decided to summon the man who loved to tell the stories. If he was not the one who started them, he might as well know who did. When the nice man with the nasty problem heard from the rabbi how devastating his colleague was, he felt truly sorry. He honestly had not considered it such a big deal to tell this story, because it was true. The rabbi could check it out if he wanted. Of course, the rabbi sighed. True, not true, that really doesn't make a difference. You cannot tell stories about people. This is all lashon hara, slander, and it's like murder. You kill a person's reputation. He said a lot more, and the man who started the rumor now felt really bad and sorry. What can I do to make it undone? He sobbed. I will do anything you say. The rabbi looked at him. Do you have any feather pillows in your house? Rabbi, I'm not poor. I have a whole bunch of them. But what do you want me to do? Sell them? No, just bring me one, said the rabbi. One of your feather pillows. The man was mystified, but he returned a bit later to the rabbi's study with a nice fluffy pillow under his arm. The rabbi opened the window, handed him a knife, and he says, Cut it open! Cut it open! Rabbi, here in your study, it'll make a mess. Do as I say, the rabbi says. And the man cut the pillow. A cloud of feathers came flying azoi from alle Seiten, from all sides. They landed on the chairs and on the bookcase, on the clock, on the cat which jumped after them. They floated over the table and into the teacups, on the rabbi and on the man with the knife, and a lot of them flew out the window in a big, swirling, whirling trail. The rabbi waited 10 minutes. 10 minutes! Then he ordered the man, Now bring me back all the feathers and stuff them back in your pillow. All of them, mind you, not one may be missing. The man stared at the rabbi in disbelief. This is impossible, Rabbi. The ones here in the room I might get, most of them, but the ones that flew out of the window are gone, Rabbi. I can't do that. You know it. Yes, said the rabbi, and nodded gravely. That is how it is. Once a rumor, a gossipy story, a secret leaves your mouth, you do not know where it ends up. It flies on the wings of the wind, and you can never get it back. He ordered the man to deeply apologize to the person about whom he had spread the rumor. That is difficult and painful, but it was the least he could do. He ordered him to apologize to the people to whom he had told the story, making them accomplices in the nasty lashon hara game. And he ordered him to diligently study the laws concerning lashon hara, about evil talk, every day of the year, for a year, and then come back to him. This is what the man did. And not only did he study about lashon hara, the evil talk, he talked about the importance of guarding one's tongue to all of his friends and his colleagues. And in the end, he became a nice man who overcame a very, very nasty problem, a nasty habit of going around telling negative things. I just want to kind of round this subject up a little bit, because you know that the power of the mouth, as we are learning, is so powerful on the negative, but also on the positive side as well. I must tell you, in the name of the chief rabbi of England, he once wrote had a whole film about a very famous teacher who helped 5-year-olds overcome their stammering problem. 5-year-olds. But interestingly, he learned something very powerful. In her approach and helping the child, she also included the family. And she got the family involved in understanding the child and how to speak and how to deal with the stammering child. Afterwards, he interviewed one of the parents and said, not only did this teacher help our child, who was 5 years old, not only did it help us understand the child, but also saved our marriage. Because one of her strategies was that every single day, everybody would say something nice, something good about someone else. Particularly, not a general thank you very much, but really on a specific thing. Thank you for ironing my shirt. Thank you for the nice dinner. Thank you for this. Thank you. But if a person is actually very specific, it'll be wonderful. In fact, when I meet with a couple about to get married, and they ask me for advice about a good marriage, having a good marriage, one of the most important things that I share is that every single day, each of them should say something nice specifically about the other person and recognize the effort made by each other, for each other, in that marriage. Having the power of a good word makes an amazing difference in everyone's life. And therefore, on this day, let us recognize the power of the ability to speak and the power of, on the negative side, and more importantly, how with good words, with encouraging words, with praise, you can elevate the whole world and bring out the potential in each and every person. This is your host, Rabbi Perl, wishing you all the best.
1, 2, 3, 4.